my take on the digital is that it is a tool that we as humans have acquired where we can basically create, manipulate, and do whatever we want in the sense of helping people and sometimes hurting people. I believe that the internet sometimes gets a bad connotation of like, oh, like it's causing people not to be able to talk face to face, or there's a lot of illegal websites and bad content on the internet, but people don't really think about how how much the internet has done for us, how many people it's saved, how many people it's connected, how many people it's empowered. Um, I feel like without the internet, life we have right now, it would be completely polar opposite. Um, I know like many people that are alive today wouldn't be alive right now. I know a lot of people, that are getting supplies across the world wouldn't be getting supplies that they normally would without the internet. Social issues that would be going on throughout the world would not be known by everybody. A lot of famous people wouldn't be famous. It's just a lot of things that would change if we didn't have the digital realm. Um, for example, like I like to my project of my movie reviews. I feel like this is a good example of like the good, and then you could see the some bad in it. The good is that like we can connect and show people content across the world. Like Chris Stuckman is a movie review guy that's verified by Rotten Tomatoes, and that's who I before this project went to for my movie reviews, and he makes money, and this is his job off making movie reviews for like Rotten Tomatoes and YouTube and for comics and movies and video games, and that's his skill. That's what he's good at, and he is able to share that with the universe now, instead of how I think it would have been if it didn't. Like if I liked a movie and there was no internet, I mean, I could tell my friends when I saw them. I could see some people at a restaurant down the road and tell them about it, but like I wouldn't get the mass global scale that YouTube and all these websites have given people because of the internet. People across the entire world can see Chris Stuckman and what he thinks on a movie. Um, I feel like an example I talked about in my ethnography with the LeBron James Haters United was that like that would not be able to occur if it wasn't for the digital realm. People are able to share ideas. People collaborate on thinking that normally wouldn't be able to. They're allowed to join together in groups um, to talk about this thing that they believe in, and this is what has caused a lot of like social change in our time, is people being able to group up together when they normally would. Me and a person from Missouri could agree on something that we normally never would have even met, and we can even become best friends. I mean, people have online relationships across country and maybe even across oceans um, due to the digital, and it's just a tool that has opened up so many doors for humanity, and obviously it's opened some bad doors too. But the digital isn't something that we should take for granted, and we should use to the full. Views on the digital realm that I found pretty thought provoking over the course. One was the TED Talk by Clay Shirky, where he talks about the positive surplus of the internet, and basically the positive surplus is like how the world collaborates positively for the good of mankind. I I really liked like him talking about that and explaining it to like the crowd, because I think people you tend to forget like this major aspect of the internet. People kind of just see the internet as social media and getting fake news and just seeing what Donald Trump's doing. But in reality, like people are creating networks, people are creating ways to make other people's lives better. And I think that that should alone be a major cause why people should view it as positive instead of negative. Another big thing for me is Clay Shirky has a little segment where he talks about in that TED Talk where um, he talks about how we were kind of considered lazy before the digital world, but in reality, it just people we didn't have the ability to do the things we do now, so we really weren't lazy. We just didn't have this tool, and I thought this was a big like concept for me, because I'm a firm believer that the internet is strictly a tool. I mean, I feel a lot of people treat it as a kind of like a person. Like it has decisions that it can make and how it can change, and it should only be good, and that it's not a platform, that it's not a tool. Like, a gun is a good example. I mean, yeah, you can regulate it and stuff, but when it comes down to it, a gun doesn't do anything unless somebody uses it incorrectly or for the good of the gun. And that's how the internet is. Um, the internet only can take in what you put in it and only gives out what you put in it. And it's not like it has a choice on what that happens. And I believe that he talks about this in a good way, about how, like, people, we weren't lazy, we just didn't have this tool. And it highlights that the internet is a tool, and that we are using it as a tool, like a car, to amplify our daily lives. Related to Clay Shirky's TED Talk, um, there's an article by TheGuardian.com, 40 Years of the Internet, How the World Changed Forever, and it helps us show, like, it shows us, like, key points in history and things that we were able to do as mankind that we were never able to do prior, that could have been done. Like, I mean, like, if we had the option, it would have been done in earlier times. But, like, all people were, like, informed by things, and people are empowered, and people are saved by the internet, is basically the main point of the article. And I feel like this relates back to Shirky's TED Talk, because uh, he's basically saying that this internet thing is saving us, and it is making us better, and it is opening doors that, you know, early 1900 1800s people never would have dreamed of. I mean, people wouldn't even think about being able to do the things that we are able to do now, and it just opens the door for even more possible things to even push mankind to its peak performance. And we, again, take it for granted, and we think that it's, oh, we should, take this away or limit this or do this because it's being misused, but we're just gonna ignore everything positive that it has done for us. And I think that's a key, like, term to take away from, or a key concept to take away from Shirky's and from the Guardian.com's article. And that stuck with me was the TED Talk by Sherry Turkle, called "Connected but Not Alone." I had a big problem with her TED Talk for this one. She has some good arguments, but, like, I completely disagree with that the digital is a problem, and it's creating social problems, and that it is causing people to not be able to have conversation face to face, and people aren't human anymore. They're all, because they're afraid that they can't delete or think about what they need to say. And I disagree, because I feel like this doesn't really apply to my life or many of the people in my life. Like, even my littlest brother, who's 13 years old in middle school, and he's always on his phone, always on everything. But, like, when it comes down to it, he talks face to face perfectly fine. And I've seen him with strangers talk with his friends. I mean, it's like nothing has changed. It's just that when he's at home, he can FaceTime his friends and talk for an hour. He can play video games on his phone. He can go on social media and talk with them the entire time. If anything, it's making us more social, I believe, because, like, when I was a kid and I went home from my friend's house and I didn't have a phone or anything, like, we didn't talk until school the next day, or like when I saw him at practice or something. But, like, he's able to talk to him all the time. They're always communicating. They're not afraid to talk to each other because they do it all the time. And her argument is just basically that technology is causing people to be afraid with talking face to face, and because they can't delete what they say. And I feel like, I mean, that may cause a little, people may be a little more uneasy when they're talking face to face. But I think that people still have the ability. I mean, if you, regardless of before the digital age or after the digital age, if you're going to be shy, you're going to be shy. If you can't talk to people face to face, you can't talk to people face to face. Technology may amplify that now. I mean, because now there's a reason, there's a blame, instead of just going, oh, he's shy, oh, he's bad at talking to people. Be like, oh, it's because he sticks his face in his phone for 2 hours a day, and that's why he can't talk to people. And I just think it's not a good argument. And Washington Post has an article, "When Internet Addiction is Actually a Good Thing," and it talks about how they did studies on poor countries and the addiction to internet and richer countries, and they found that the poorer countries are way more addicted to the internet. And I believe this shows, like, this shows that like we don't like this fits in with Turkle's like argument kind of is because like we don't people in like the better countries don't aren't addicted to it because they see it as a tool and they just use it when they need it. Like if your friends are sitting right next to you, you can talk to them face to face, and then you look at your phone to see what's going on social media, and you keep talking to them. You don't like you're not addicted to the internet. You don't need it. You're just using it. Like people in like poor countries don't have it as much, and they view it as gold, and to them that is something that they want to have. Conversation online is something they want to have, not something that's bad. Non face to face conversation is something that's important to them. And I think this view, to see it like this, is to show that it's not necessarily important to people, whether it's face to face contact or not. The digital's impact on the human life, I would say, is just really, I feel like it just fills the glass to our potential. I feel like um, having this tool, having this ability, basically creates so many avenues and so many options for each individual and as a global community for us to possibly do. And, you know, it has just absolutely changed our lives. It kind of reminds me of like how like a car or a plane made it so we can go long distances in a short amount of times, and how much that changed the possibilities of what we are able to do a as a species. And to me, the internet is that times 100. Um, it's pretty important to me. I feel like you know I often take it for granted. I often um, kind of forget that it's there because this is just like a medium for me to do something else. It's kind of just like my tool. You know, I'm just walking around with this Swiss Army knife called the internet, and I just use it all the time without even thinking about it. I don't even basically really thank it in my mind for what it's able to do for me, and how it has helped me be lazy, how it has helped me not be lazy, open my opportunities for schooling and learning all the things that I've learned on the internet, social things. Um, the internet has many social things that are different than face to face contact, and I feel like I've learned how to control myself in other aspects of my life because I'm able to control what I put out on the internet. Um, for me to be human is just to be able to make mistakes, but also, but like with the common goal of like progressing and being able to complete something and do something and be successful and learn and have the ability to create and live a good life and keep the race going, the species going of the humans. So like with the internet, I feel like it is amplifying what it means to be human to me, to like feel, to like make mistakes, to work towards a common good, to try to help people. um, I feel like this has just made it easier and made it so actually it like puts more power on the person, and you know now you can do it. There's no excuse why you the individual can't do it. You don't need to be a famous person or somebody that's got a lot of money to do it. You the individual can do it, and I think that's one of the most important parts of having the internet. Um, the like, but when it means to be human, and you see like a big divide between the digital and physical, and there is a big divide. I feel like on the internet, I'm not. I'm kind of like half engaged, like when I'm on the internet, like, and that sounds weird, but like I feel like I'm only putting half of like myself, my energy, or whatever I am, like I'm doing into my social media, into this. But like when I'm in person, this is when I'm fully engaged, fully learning. You know, it's not like I'm putting my whole life into the digital realm. It's I'm using it. I mean, it knows it's me. It knows generally most about me, but it's not me. It's what I'm using it for. And there's a big divide between it. I feel like some people forget that and always view their life as if they have no repercussions. They can just say what they want. But there's a lot of integration between the two, and it's a gray area to define what is in between nowadays, since everything is so controlled by the digital.